right, Anonymous asks, why didn't we see Bella's pregnancy through Bella's point of view?
All right, so this is one of the differences from Forever Dawn. In Forever Dawn, I wrote the whole pregnancy from Bella's point of view, and it was actually quite a bit longer. And I noticed as I'm reading through this that there is this significant lag time where Bella is stuck in a house and everything that's happening is on the outside. All the action is somewhere else. And there's all these things she's missing because she wouldn't know about them. And I always felt with that rough draft that there really needed an overhaul to make that section more interesting. And so when I started playing around with the idea of letting Jacob take over the narration, because he was the one that was seeing all the exciting stuff, it really grew on me. And then I started writing it, and it was such an awesome experience. All this time, all through New Moon and Eclipse, I'm hearing all of the snarky comments in Jacob's head that nobody else gets to hear because he's not saying them out loud. And finally, Jacob gets to be all snarky in his head, and you get to hear it. So I had a really great time with that, and it really did move the story along a lot faster with a lot more action. So I think it was the right thing to do.
Well, I'm glad we got to enjoy the snark, because
I enjoy snark.
I love the snark. All right, next question, also anonymous. It's, do the cover and title of Breaking Dawn have a meaning? And what part in the book goes with my never? And then they say, love the book, sorry it ended. But so first part, cover and title have a meaning.
Right, so the cover. For me, this cover was extremely meaningful. I was really happy with how it turned out. This cover is not just for Breaking Dawn. This cover is for all 4 books. It shows Bella's progression from being the pawn to being the most powerful player on the board. And I was excited to show that visually. So that's why it looks like that. So with the title, obviously I just, Forever Dawn was always way, way, way too cheesy. And I wanted a sense of disaster as well. I mean, this is a new awakening and a new day, but there's also a lot of problems inherent in it. So Breaking Dawn was the right way to go there. Oh, there was one more part of that with My Never, which you guys haven't heard yet, because it's not out. This is one of the really cool things about touring with a rock star. You get to hear new stuff, and you're going to hear in My Never a little bit later. And I did tell people in New York that I'd tell you which page in Breaking Dawn it applies to, and it's 355. So now you know.
Write that down, 355. Okay. Wait, there's more. Mimi asks, seeing Edward and the other Cullens through Jacob's eyes was fascinating to her. If you could tell Breaking Dawn from another character's point of view, what character's point of view would it be?
Alice would be a good one. Good suggestion. Okay, I'm not taking suggestions, sorry.
No, the voting happens in November.
Right.
Not here.
With Jacob's perspective, getting to see Edward, especially his evolution of when he kind of has to finally admit that he was wrong about Edward all along, that was really fascinating to watch how Belle and Edward looked to someone else. I enjoyed that, but I do think that if you're looking at it from a storytelling perspective, really the only other option is Alice, because she has another adventure that we don't get to see. But the book was getting really long. Sometimes you have to just draw the line at, almost 800 pages.
Okay. Okay, Nikki wants to know, since Renesmee will live forever, does that mean Jacob will be immortal as well, since the vampires are always going to be around?
Actually, once the whole trigger of vampires being around is over, there's a lot of fact questions coming up, just so you know, just so we get some of these things straight. Jacob can continue to be the same age he is now as long as he keeps turning into a werewolf every now and then, which is really not very hard for him. So luckily for them, they're both set up for immortality, which is nice.
Myra wants to know, what was the phone conversation between Rosalie and Bella like?
Right, I actually talked to someone today who had a reaction to that I never expected. She thought that like Rosalie and Bella were going to take off and run away, and I was kind of a cool I can see that, so that was cool. But it went something like, you know, Bella said to Rosalie, you know, obviously you've heard, and Rosalie's like, yeah, and I don't have a lot of time, Bella says. Rosalie's very sullen at this point because here's Bella getting what she wants again, and then Bella says, you have to help me, and you have to help me keep this child alive. And that was when Rosalie's whole perspective on Bella changed, and they made a very fast agreement. And when Bella and Edward got home, Rosalie was ready. And she took over from there. So that was it was a very short conversation, but it changed a lot about their relationship.
So is that what Bella said to get Rosalie on her side? I need your help. She reached out to her.
And she just told her the truth of the situation, and that was enough to change her mind.
Okay, Trelicia asks, is Bella's before car in Breaking Dawn a real car?
It's not. This is the first non-real car in the Twilight series. There actually is a Mercedes Guard, which is very close to the Guardian. I just wanted it one step more. I wanted more missile-proof armor. So it is a little bit different from the reality.
Well, she'd need a safe car because she's a little accident prone. Amanda says, why did Edward call Jacob son in Breaking Dawn?
Right. That was a really odd writing moment for me. Every now and then when I'm writing, one of my characters' voices is so loud with a line I'm not expecting and it just takes me off guard. It happened in New Moon at the end, and in this moment I realized that Edward had completely accepted Renesmee's future and that Jake was going to be a part of it, and there was no resentment. Everything was gone. Their happiness was, you know, in that moment the most important thing. And it's totally cheesy, but when I heard that as I'm typing, I like burst into tears. It was very odd. I do that every now and then. It scares people.
I was going to say, I bet you've cried before. Okay, and this is another anonymous. What was going on between Billy and Charlie?
Right. There was this whole romance thing going on that Bella only barely caught the fringes of. You know, Billy always kind of thought that after a while, you know, he'd move in there. You know, Sue's a nice-looking woman, and they have a lot in common. But she and Charlie just bonded, and Billy, I don't think is talking to him right now.
So not a lot is going on then?
No, they're not speaking, but I'm sure they'll get over it.
I hope so. You would know. Drew asks, why did you have Bella envision having a son rather than a daughter?
Right. So I always knew, Renesmee was always Renesmee, and she just is such a strong character to me that I always knew that was going to happen. But then when I was getting into Bella's head and looking at it from her perspective, you know, she has a few issues with herself that she learned to get over. But at the time, she can't imagine anything more beautiful than Edward. So it seemed to her that his son would be the most beautiful thing possible and the most amazing thing because she always sees him in that light. But, you know, Renesmee is even more than she had hoped for. So she was surprised, but happily.
And through the series, Bella's also been told, you do not